guys? Tambo here with your weekly core report. With the first week of NBA in the books, our Run Pure Sports hot streak continues. RPS has been on a roll, and NBA kicked off with some big winners. BigT hit 58,000 across both sites on opening night. New member Jeff Nugent hit for 10K. Shawnee hit for 22K. And on night 2, Eden Cohen shipped for a monster $250,000, taking down the main $888 tournament on DraftKings. On Wednesday, Locks hit for $72,000 on DraftKings, and on that same night, I hit my biggest NBA win yet, shipping for over $100,000 on FanDuel by simply using the premium content produced by our Run Pure Sports team. Glock's heat map provided me with the info I needed to build my lineup and help me ship. And it wasn't just NBA producing big winners. Big T pushed Gus the Bus Edwards hard on the Sunday morning Wood Show.
I know we're saving money at running back this week, but are you spinning up for Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I mean, I can't play Derrick Henry when I'm playing Gus the Bus. I mean, that's tough.
How does every game finds its way back to Gus?
Gus went off, scoring 2 touchdowns at only 2% ownership. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel to get great calls like this for free on a daily basis. Gus was also featured in Big T's player pool, along with Bengals stacks. The Week 7 Burrow to Chase connection was on fire, leading to some big wins for RPS members. Congrats to P451017 for riding that stack to $15,000. And shout out to DK for 5 for staking Corey Pooler, who hit for $1,500. DK for himself hit for $4K on the afternoon slate. To top off the week, our members ran pure in some Showdown contests too. Last Thursday, I shipped another King of the Beach seat with plays I highlighted in my attack plan, available to premium members, featuring Jawan Johnson in the captain slot. And the winning continued on Sunday's Showdown slate with a slew of RPS logos sharing in a first place finish. Congrats to Bring the Noise, who entered 2 different lineups, which actually both tied for first. He was joined at the top by fellow RPS members Sully's World, Nuance7, Molliver, Jay Gingery, FF Guru TX, Dub KJ, and T-Brad30 joined in, turning $68 into $1,600. Shout out as well to member Alec for turning $20 into $10K in MLB. Congrats again to all our members. If you want to be featured in the core report, drop your winning lineup in our Members Never Win channel in our premium Discord. If you're not a member, join now. You won't find a better value with all sports included for one low price. Remember, if you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Until next time, let's keep running pure.
Happy Halloween, motherfuckers. It's the review show here, lineup review. I'm JSU, your host today. We got KFALik on with us today. We got my favorite Canadian toe tag and Tambo with us. Don't forget, guys, hit that thumbs up, hit that like button. If you like all these free shows we do every single week, every day, hit the thumbs up, hit the red box, which is the subscribe button to get you notified every time we go live with these free shows. So make sure you hit that subscribe, that red box at the bottom right-hand corner. Trying to do right hand, but I don't know, whatever. It's at the bottom right hand of your screen though. So check that out. Tambo, fun week in DFS. I'm going to start it off with you, man. Happy Halloween. I like your costume, Run Pure Sports. I love it. Talk about it.
Yeah, Run Pure Sports contributor, DFS player, content provider. They're dressed up as that. Same thing as always. Every Monday, we're back here to do it again. Good slate yesterday. I thought it was fine. I know it's going to be the same situation. Everyone whining about the chalk hitting, and we go on there and do everything. It's just part of the game, but we'll talk about it. It's actually a really interesting slate to talk through. I think there's some crazy stuff that happened. There's, a bit of a breakdown. Like if you look, Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, Foreman, Pollard, some of the mainstay stuff for sure. But don't tell me you had Conklin in your cash lineups or Garrett Wilson. Maybe, but Kamara, everyone's, he crushed. He was 12%. You could easily get away with playing him. He wasn't in a lot of cash lineups. It just wasn't set up that way. There was actually some late news that made it make sense. Like my core, I just missed my core on the site yesterday. It was very close. the 3v3 was player for player in all the same spots. Like Mostert goes to Waddle, Amon-Ra goes to Khalif Raymond, who I love. Talked about him on the Off the Chalk show. I like him better than Reynolds. If you weren't playing Amon-Ra, I thought he was a good option. He only got 10 points, but it would have made my lineup work because instead of Terrace Marshall, I would have had Foreman, and that closed it out because my other piece to my core was the Moreau when Waller got ruled out, which allowed me to get Kamara at 7,100 as a secondary stack, and then close it out with whatever defense that you wanted. But Go Collect is in the chat, says messed up not stacking Kamara and Saints defense. Yeah, somebody else messed up yesterday. You guys probably saw him at the top of the leaderboard. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Didn't mess up overall. He had a great day, but could have won the $1 million. So for me, JSU, good week. CMC was call of the day. This man threw up the hat trick. I knew that was coming. I said when they had those injuries and the setup and everyone's looking at the other spots, it was a good day for a lot of guys, but he for sure made the most sense to me in that spot. So I love that. Stick to your running backs. Derrick Henry was obvious, all of that. And lastly, before you go to Kevin, because he'll probably ramble like I am too, but craziest part of the week to me, we'll talk about Ellinger too. The optimal lineup did not have a single player from Miami in it. No Tua, no Tyreek, no Waddle. And you'll say, oh, but those optimals always have random people. Let me read it to you right quick. Justin Fields, who was definitely talked about as a guy you could pay $1,200 more than Ellinger if you wanted to still stack a bunch of studs in there. Kamara, Pollard, AJ Brown, DJ Moorchalk, Hopkins at 20%, Deontay Foreman, Saints D with Kamara, and then Conklin. Conklin was the one-off, but remember, they didn't have Corey Davis in there. So while everyone was looking at Elijah Moore in the doghouse, you look at Garrett Wilson, who still came through, but they just chose to fit in the tight end. My point being, everyone's going to say, oh, the cash team hit again. That's just what won the tournaments. The best lineup was still out there, and you didn't necessarily need that. So just to put that out on the table.
Yeah, I didn't really hear a random one-off. I mean, even Conklin. Tight end was a mess this past week. So, if you played Tyler Conklin, I would have been like, oh, that's a terrible player. That he's not even in the pool. Yeah, I put him in the pool with half the other dudes we were picking from at that price range. So, that to me is fine because of how weak tight end was. But I think a few things. One, I was stunned at Kamara's ownership. I thought Kamara would have been easily double that. He was like 12% or somewhere around there. I thought he would have easily been 25. He shoved it right up my ass. I didn't play him. So that was a bad move on my part, especially at that ownership. I fade chalk and I'm fine with fading it. Even this past week, there were so many good running backs. I know Kamara was on a bunch of the top teams, which is fine, but there were so many good RB plays outside of Kamara you could have went to. So it's not like you needed him because everyone was playing Tony Pollard. So that was one running back slot already gone, and he smashed. Deontay Foreman smashed. Derrick Henry, like you said, smashed. CMC smashed. There were other ways to go. You read that lineup, though. It definitely probably saved money to get to the AJ Browns for the optimal. But in general, you didn't just need Kamara to make money last night. I just couldn't believe he was that low owned. And he stuck it to me bad. Finally scored touchdowns too, which of course that's what happens when you talk about the man not scoring touchdowns all year. Kevin, let's talk some football here, buddy. What'd you see this weekend?
Good morning. I don't know what else to add except for what Tambo's already said. The one thing I will add is that Tony, Mr. Big T, did post in the Discord that he hated waking up to the text message that I sent him, and I posted it to JSU as well. Unfortunately, I won't be on the Monday show for the NBA Up to Lock, so I had to tell JSU, Mr. Boss U, that I couldn't make it on the show, but make sure y'all are watching. It's going to be a good one as always. I said that some of these Jets receivers are going to win a GPP today. Did I not say that, Mr. JSU?
I do have the DMs of Kevin messaging me at 8:30 in the morning, telling me one of these Jets receivers is going to win a GPP. Now, at that point, you did not know that Elijah Moore was in. You figured that out after 5 minutes after you DM me. You figured it out. But Garrett Wilson was still on a lot of the top teams in a lot of tournaments. He was cheap. You did put a message in the chat saying you were no longer on any Jets receiver besides Garrett Wilson, but he was popular. Like he was the one Jet. I think everyone was like, if I'm going to play a Jet, I'll play Garrett Wilson. I don't think anyone was really thinking too much about any of these other guys. Tyler Conklin obviously smashed, but I don't think he was really talked up that much.
Sure. So anyways, the one thing I do think that we obviously need to discuss was there was a lot of talk about the Sam Ehlinger play and playing a 4K chalk quarterback. And I want to say again the same thing that I learned from Big T, Hoop, and Eric Crane many years ago when they were at a different company. They said there is no such thing as a chalk quarterback usually because there are so many quarterbacks and there's only one position to fit them. It's not often that you have a chalk quarterback per se, because what do we call chalk when we're talking about it at the running back, tight end, or wide receiver position, or even the defensive position, is what percentage? Does anybody have an opinion of what percentage that looks like for a guy in those positions?
For me, it's like 20% or more.
See, I'd say it's 35 or more is what I would call like strict chalk. Is
impossible.
What we consider.
Like one guy per week in NFL tops 35. So you have to have a lower number than that, or else nothing's
Yeah,
chalk.
it's got to be, for me, it's over 20. Anyone over 20% is chalk, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a good fair basis. I'm saying you can't say 35 because one guy is going to get there each week. Like even Tyreek was 28.
And to clarify, like there's different types of it too. Like if Tony Pollard somehow came in at 25%, I'd be like, oh, I'm getting Tony Pollard at half the ownership he should be. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's different, it means different things for different guys. I would have said the same thing about Josh Jacobs 2 weeks ago. If he came in at 20%, I would have been like, oh, wow, I'm getting a 20% ownership discount on Josh Jacobs. So everyone's a little different, but I would say most of the time, chalk to me in NFL, anything over 20%.
Sure. Okay. Well, the thing I will say about what I expected from this Colts Commanders game was going to be, again, the Colts trailing because they can't run the ball. They are just their offensive line is so terrible that you're going to be dealing with it every single time. And it happened again, to be honest. They ran the ball a lot more. They ran the ball 29 times and 23 rushes. But they were still just as inefficient as they've been the entire year. They were a little bit more efficient than they've been. But that was my expectation, was that you were going to get that. And when you're talking about a 4K quarterback, you need one touchdown, couple 100 yards, which is usually normal. Can't put Malik Willis in that category, but normally it's normal. And then you get, for a guy like Sam Ehlinger, you get 20 plus yards. That's you're there. And what it allowed me to do was to get the guys. And unfortunately, Amon-Ra St. Brown did not do it for me in Miami and Detroit stack. And then pieces didn't do it otherwise. But I had the pieces I wanted. I had Derrick Henry plenty. I had DeAndre Hopkins plenty. Like I had the guys that I wanted to get in there. I absolutely wanted it. It gave me a guy like I thought Garrett Wilson was a good play. And I thought Terrace Marshall was a good play. And I stand by those two as the other cheap plays to fit in all the other pieces of the puzzle to make it all work. Foster Moreau I liked as well. And it allowed me to get the other guys. I'm disappointed in myself for playing a guy like Saquon against Seattle, which I thought was a good spot, but maybe I'm just not evaluating Seattle correctly anymore, because maybe they are a good team. Everybody expected them to be bottom 5 team in the NFL, and maybe they're better than people expect, and they're developing well, and we need to stop trying to attack them. But I should have gotten on Christian McCaffrey instead, and that would have been the piece of the puzzle that would have worked out. Tony Pollard was an absolute lock, and I thought Derrick Henry was a lock. Those were two guys that I locked into every single lineup I had on every single slate: Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry. Like, it was not even a question. And then DeAndre Hopkins, I think I may have locked him in mine as well. I thought those three guys were just such good plays on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, let's stick with Derrick Henry for a second. I think the craziest thing I saw all week was just how ridiculously bad Houston is, from the standpoint that team in Tennessee literally just did, like, they told you what they were going to do before they did it. And they just did it the entire game. That was embarrassing to watch. You have a quarterback in Willis who's clearly not ready to throw the football. And you know this team's going to come out and just run. They were running on third down consistently. 3rd and 7, they were running the football. And they were picking up first downs. This is how horribly bad Houston is at stopping the run. It wasn't like, oh, Derrick Henry's a beast. But Dontrell Hilliard was going out there and getting big runs on 3rd and 7. It wasn't just Derrick Henry. Yes, Derrick Henry abused them. He's a monster. But no, you can't just let a team throw the football like 10 times and run the football 40-something times or whatever they did and run it like that. It's insane to me. It wasn't even like you didn't know what they were doing. They were just run, right side, just hammering it. And it was just embarrassing to watch, really. It was terrible. So I had to turn it off. And I was like all in Derrick Henry like you. My two of my favorite running back plays overall were Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, and I love DeAndre Swift. Swift obviously did not, Swift over Kamara, that did not work. But those were 3 of my most heavily owned running back plays. But it was just tough to watch Derrick Henry just own this team. And in Houston,
so two things.
Always play running backs against Houston, no matter what.
So 2 things with that. Number one is I am a Texans fan, unfortunately, currently, but I will stand by my team and stick with them through thick and thin. So I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Usually get to watch the Texans games easily on cable TV. My wife is a Titans fan. My 2 kids are decided to split the household as well. My oldest was like, I'm going to cheer for the Texans. And the youngest one was like, I'm going to cheer for the Titans. So we had a little bit of a split household. And my wife, who really doesn't watch much football, was just laughing at me the entire time, just laughing at the game, just watching Derrick Henry just run it through the holes the entire time. And my son, who's 6 years old and is starting to get into football, goes, Daddy, the Texans suck. That's all he said. He was like, this is awful.
When a team runs for 45 attempts for 314 yards in this day and age of football, you don't see that anymore. Like that. Yeah. And you throwing attempts, 10 throwing attempts. This was a 17-10 game, by the way. This wasn't 17,
it was 17-3. I
okay, whatever though. They weren't like whooping them the whole game. It was like 7-3. You know what I mean, Falik? Like they were. Yep. It's not like to throw the ball only 10 times and to run 15 yards on the ground, whatever it was. Embarrassing. 6.8 yards for a guy who had 32 attempts carrying the football. He's averaging 6.8 yards. And the backups averaging 10.4 on 8 attempts. That's horrible.
So let's throw out 2 more things that I will say. I had one more, now I'll throw a second one just because. So both of these teams are playing on Thursday night and Sunday night this week. So the Texans are playing the Eagles on Thursday night. How exciting for everyone. How many Eagle running backs are you going to have on your team is the question. 1, 2, 3, 6. Can you put all 6 Eagles? I'm just kidding. 5. Like, how many Eagles running backs are you going to have on your squad tonight on Thursday?
Hey, Falik, I'd play you against the Texans right now.
And the other one is the Titans are playing the Chiefs. And what do you do about this running back situation? They play the Chiefs on Sunday night. I think that's going to be probably one of the more interesting games of that you can play. It's the most script dependent showdown slate is always Titans games are, I feel like. So you got a really script dependent game on Sunday night, which I'm expecting Ryan Tannehill to be back. So there is that piece at least. But you got a really script-dependent game. So what do you do with those Titans guys is going to be an interesting conversation for Sunday. Can't wait to discuss it and really think through what these 2 games are, because they're going to be interesting to play. Even if they may be bad games, they'll be at least interesting games.
So the one thing about the Titans, and I'll bring it to Tambo here, but one thing about the Titans, their coaching staff, They're solid. They give good game plans. It's not exciting football all the time, but they game plan to win. And sometimes they'll win ugly. They'll find ways to win, that coaching staff. But Tambo, anything else from the weekend just overall before we get into these lineups?
A couple things. One, really quick to run off what you just said. That's the whole point. I actually think their coaching staff is good. That's why they've been in the playoffs these last couple of years and making big upsets and things that people are, how the hell are the Titans doing this? They don't care if you enjoy watching them play football. They knew damn well that Houston, they said it. There was an interview this morning. I can't remember if it was Willis or somebody else that actually was asked about it. And they said, we know they can't stop the run. What do you expect us to do? They just jammed it, and they know it'll pay off. Doesn't matter how many times they have to do it. And like you said, JSU, it's not just because they've got the beast that is, but think about it, division. They see them all the time. It's the fourth straight game in a row, over 200 yards, and on top of it, 2+ touchdowns. So Henry against them is just a smash. We knew it. It didn't take long to get there yesterday. It was pretty quick. You thought after those first games that you were dead. If you didn't have those guys, you could still get there if you had them. So I know he's not going to be in the Millie Maker winning lineup, like I said, and he didn't actually end up on the optimal, but that's the other thing I was going to say. When you look at it from that perspective next, the knowns versus the unknowns, the same topic that keeps coming up. My two mantras: one, nobody cares, work harder. Two, not who you play, it's how you play them. This is what I keep talking about with this stuff here. Like I said, obviously Tua, Tyreek. I don't know if Simon has the lineup yet, but we can segue into it because we can start talking about it here. The chat's already brought up that, it's hard to see where these lineups come from in the sense of they don't always make sense, but I think it makes perfect sense. And we'll go through it, but let me know, Simon, when you've got it up there and we'll roll into it.
Yeah. So the lineup that you're referring to, I'm pretty sure the Millie Maker winner.
Yeah.
It was a Tua double stack. There was not one Lion on it, I'm pretty sure. So there was no run back. Then it was a Kamara with the Saints defense. So obviously no Raiders. And then there was a wide receiver tight end combo from the Jets. There was Garrett Wilson, Tyler Conklin, and DJ Moore finished out the team with Tony Pollard. So Tambo, it's up now on the screen. I mean, Talk about it a little bit. What'd you see in this lineup?
And yes, obviously to the point of the chat, that Kamara came out better at 7,100 than 84. If you watch the top of the show, I've already said that. I said the easy move was many that were on Henry could then take the news of Waller being out, plug in someone like a Moreau, and have that money to get to go down to Kamara, get a little secondary stack and get up somewhere else. Or you could play Kamara with the Saints D that was needed. But the point being, when you look at this lineup, the Tua double stack makes perfect sense. Kamara with the D. Pollard was a known. I keep talking about knowns versus unknowns. It was pretty obvious that Pollard in the spot, no Zeke, at home, 10-point favorites, the matchup, the O-line versus D-line, all those factors, just plug them in. That's why he's 50%. But then the other stuff, like I said, when you look at it with Garrett Wilson, Conklin, they were missing. Not only had Breece Hall went down to injury, who was a guy they were checking down to plenty, but then there was also the fact that Corey Davis was now, who's a guy that Wilson liked, and what's his name? Elijah Moore had asked for a trade and been very vocal about it and was sort of in the doghouse, didn't even play last week. So there was no guarantee that he was going to come back into the mix. I think that was another interesting factor of this slate with the trade deadline being tomorrow. There was a lot of guys. I saw someone post a tweet today of guys that didn't get used or whatever. The other thing about Kamara is that, he's 12% owned. Everyone's like, oh, Kamara, the chalk. That's what we talked about earlier. First of all, Falik thought chalk was more than that. That's okay. It's his perception. But my point is 12% is definitely not chalk. So you can think about however you want. That is not chalk. You can play that in your lineup, get different elsewhere, no problem. Conklin, 1%, not chalk. Garrett Wilson, 7%, not chalk. DJ Moore, chalk. His guy, Foreman, was still owned, but Foreman actually outscored him. So he could have had him there instead. And that he was by far, Foreman to me was the best value running back on the slate. They had nobody else there. He was going to get touches no matter what. Speaking of Houston earlier, he had looked good. And I know Falik knows this and was on Foreman last season a few times playing these lineups with Foreman in them when he had his chances that you could play him. And he was the guy that could get there. So putting up 34.8 for Foreman is incredible. But I'm just saying that could have been used here instead of DJ Moore. So it looks like even more chalk in the lineup, but it still would have made sense. To me, there was a lot of knowns if you just plug them in. Kamara, based on the situation, no Landry, no Thomas, the possibilities. Pollard, the obvious one. Moore, fine without the ATL, with Terrell out and just how bad their secondary's been, but you could have played Foreman with Hubbard out. And then you get the double stack that makes the most sense. Tua, Tyreek, Waddle. it leaves you with a couple spots to fill in, and you can sort of put in whatever you want.
So Tambo, 2 questions. And first I'll hit the chat question real quick because, where was it? It said, good math guy said, where was it? Conklin and the defense are the only head scratchers there. So I want you to tell me why the defense is not a head scratcher, because it's not a head scratcher, but I want you to explain it to the people to why it's not a head scratcher.
It's twofold for me. One, it makes sense in the lineup with Kamara. We're going to talk about that in a second. If you want to stack running back defense, you can, but you don't need to. The bigger reason, though, to me, is that Josh Jacobs was a chalk piece on this slate that did not come through. And so if you were wanting to leverage the fact that you did not have Josh Jacobs in your build and go different there, on top of a third factor, actually, is that many were playing the Washington defense. The Commanders were like the biggest chalk on the slate, right there at a similar price to leverage against Ellinger. But you could easily plug it in. So those 3 reasons, it made sense in the build with Kamara. Not really, because I don't ever, you know what I mean? I shouldn't say it like this. It does make sense, but you don't have to stack running back and DST. It's just a common correlation. The second one is the leverage off of Jacobs on the other side. You're not playing the Jacobs Olave secondary stack, 2 of the only pieces that busted on this slate that were pretty popular. And then on top of the top 9 or 10. And then lastly, like I said, when everyone's playing he's already got 20% Tua, 50% Pollard, 28% Tyreek, 20% Waddle, and then Moore or Foreman would have been over 20%. So you don't want to be playing the 16% defense in the Commanders or whatever either, is likely a piece of it. So there's really 3 reasons why it was not a head scratcher, and Conklin couldn't be less of a head scratcher because JSU said it. 1, tight end was a wasteland. No Andrews, no Kelsey. By the way, on the look ahead this week, they're not on the main slate again in week 9. They've got primetime games. And then the second piece would be that when we talked about it already, you don't have the other guys. Breece Hall down to injury. You've got Elijah Moore in the doghouse. Corey Davis out. It's definitely not a head scratcher. It just fits perfectly. Another way to get different within your chalk cash. I don't have a problem people saying chalk hit. Look at the lineup. What I have a problem with people say, oh, another cash game lineup won it. This was not someone's cash game lineup. There's similarities to it for sure because there's chalk pieces, but no one had these guys and this setup in cash. That's the whole point. Not who you play, it's how you play them. Take the cash lineup, move it over some to a tournament lineup.
Now, I'm going to explain why there's a reason why no one has this lineup, even though, like you brought out, there's a ton of chalk pieces in it. The reason is, look at it. They paired guys from the same team, not from the same game. Look at the entire lineup. We don't see these type of lineups where there's not one dude, for instance, there's not one Saint with one Raider. There's not one Dolphin with one Lion. There's not one Jet with one Patriot. There's not one Panther with one Falcon. You guys get what I'm saying? They did not bring it back from another team in any way, from a secondary stack standpoint, from a QB receiver stack standpoint, running back to running back. They didn't do any of that. They played actually multiple pieces from the same team as opposed to the same game. And a lot of times optos nowadays, they're always bringing it back, adding secondary stacks where it's one guy from one team, one guy from another. Not as many are doing the 2 guys from one team and doing that in multiple settings. And he did that in the Jets, the Saints, and the Dolphins, 2 or more guys. So 3 teams, and he did it from the same. That's what makes this lineup so interesting to me. And Kevin, I'll bring it to you, but that's why, even though there's so many chalk pieces outside of like the defense and the tight end, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be a dupe lineup because of that reason, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's a very nicely constructed lineup. I had no issue with any of them because, again, just like Tambo was saying, first of all, Miami, all their targets go to the same 2 guys most of the time, and those are the guys that Tua is looking at every time. Like Pollard was an absolute lock to me, like no question about it. And just like Tambo said, you could have easily gone from DJ Moore to Deontay Foreman. Which, first question I would say is an interesting question is how much did DJ Moore help his stock or hurt his stock in the game yesterday? He had a great game, but he also lost the game for his team. And so did
well, you can make the case though, without TJ Moore making that really
Sure.
good catch that they're not even
That's
in
why
that
I'm saying-
situation in
that's
the
why I'm
first place. And you can make the case that they had chances to win the game,
Of course.
right?
I gotta
had
cut in
two
though. Last one to
chances
make the
win
case.
game.
Not only like I know the Twitter was like tell him to make the kick anyways. Obviously the guy's fired up. You should be smarter. Keep your helmet on, but there's no guarantee he was making the pat from right there. He missed like 3 kicks after that, so he probably would have missed that too. So it is what it is. He made a huge catch. He got hyped up. He took it off. The kicker's job is to make the kick.
The problem is there's just so much like it's so hard to hold back. We as fans can watch it on TV and go, no, what are you doing? Keep your helmet on. Just hold your helmet. Like at that moment, if I was him and made that play, I don't know if I could have held back from taking my helmet off or doing a flip or whatever these guys do to kind of get that energy, that excitement out. Because coaches want that. They want these guys to give that. The problem is you just can't take your helmet off because you get a flag. You can do all these other things, though, where you don't get flags that were like, hey, just do a celebration. All these just do something like that as opposed to take your helmet off. But in that moment, I don't know if I could have resisted taking my helmet off. I'm not going to lie. That was a monster catch. And by the way, that's those defenders – why did they stop running? Like, why? What are you doing? Your whole point is to just keep him away from the end zone. Why did you stop? Like, it made no sense to me. There's 2 dudes there and they both stopped at the same point. One of you has to be running back while the other one's with him. Like, you never stop. That was terrible. That should never happen.
Well, transitioning into the other lineup we wanted to present, which is the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place Millie Maker lineups of a certain type of mustard who is very well known within the DFS industry. Unfortunately, this is why it seems like it was the easiest build to add in the one piece to win the Millie Maker, and it's the exact same lineup as this one, except for instead of DJ Moore, it had Deontay Foreman in all 3 of them, and then which gives you your 3 running back route, which I think most people were saying was going to be the route to go yesterday, and then it added in they played 3 different defenses. They played I'm trying to remember, the Commanders, the Colts, and who was it? I'm blanking on the third, but
Texans.
Yeah. And he played 3 different defenses, and for some reason he had the money. He had $2,700 for a defense, but the Saints did not come up in that as his last defense to throw in there. When he from what I know, he throws a ton of lineups, and I didn't look exactly at how many he threw in for this one. I know it's above 45 because I saw 45 in the top 500. Not 45 lineups, but like the number 45 in the top 500 lineups. But the Alvin Kamara to the Saints with Deontay Foreman, which makes complete sense, would have unfortunately would have won him the $1 million, and he would have been buying a lot of mustard over the next however many years with the $1 million he would have won.
Yeah, I mean, Tambo, the guy has the same exact lineup, changes the D in three of the different ones. Now, I'm pretty sure he's an MME guy. He probably 150'd.
He did.
So he did 150, but this was clearly a lineup he really loved, right? He clearly loved this lineup because you talked about it. When you run 150, you don't just have like 3 of the exact same lineups normally where it just changes out the defense, right? Talk about that a little bit, because this had to be clearly one of his things where maybe it was one of his top lineups that he just loved and he just rotated the defense in a few of them because he loved the build so much. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm looking it up here right now, which we can do nowadays and see it, but he definitely runs at least at most 2 uniques for the majority of what he does, for sure, because this was obviously one unique, just swapping the defense over. And I just looked at a bunch of his lineups and they were very close, just changing the tight end only. And it doesn't, for some reason, on these sites show the defense for whatever reason in certain lineups. So that's weird. But either way, yeah, that is interesting that he didn't get to that defense with the setup. Again, I'm not sure. I could go back and look too, but I can see his ownership total. I'm looking at 2 different things that I want to say one more thing. but he had a bunch of, so 61% Pollard in his lineup, 60% Foreman, 50% Tua, 50% Tyreek, 50% Kamara, 50% Waddle. And this is on 150 lineups, 42% Waddle, 35% DJ Moore, 30% Mostert, 20% Wilson. So that's to rattle off a few. I do want to check one more thing just while I got it here to pull it up, but I will say this too. This is crazy. Someone just posted, I had to go double check it. I saw our guy JBC on Twitter. He crushes, MME guy. I saw him post this yesterday, but I didn't put two and two together until our guy Romeo just mentioned in the chat. He actually had the exact lineup that this guy wish he had in the Millie in the early only slate for 100K. So he won the early only with 276.98 with the Saints D in this build and didn't have it on the main slate. So another just set up the way it works, right? You get it for that. So projections were help getting it there, but I do want to check one thing, JSU, and this is what's interesting. No, he hasn't. I thought the other thing I was going to say could have happened with Grey Poupon here is that he also could cap at 49.9, which would make it so that these would be the only three rotations that you get through in the defense, but he has $50,000 maxed out lineup. So for whatever reason, did not get it. I mean, if it's in an opto and it just shook out that way, so be it. Usually it's like you get a lineup you love, so you're like, I'll just re-import it and put the different D. But to Falik's point, and even our guy Brock in chat earlier said he almost always goes to the next correlation of running back defense. You'd think it would have been one that he would have saw and just plugged in, but when you have the optimizer doing all the work, it's helpful and hurtful in some cases for that reason. And it looks like he just didn't get to it. To me, it's just a setup where if you got to it, it would have been the winner. That sucks, but he did still take 1, 2, 3 and the $5. I saw him a bunch of other places with the same 150 set that he won a bunch of money. So I'm sure he'll be a little bit pissed off, but at the same time, it's a pretty good Sunday in NFL. In NFL, it's tough to win. So any good Sunday like this is a great one.
Tambo, because you have the numbers up. What was his exposure to Raiders players in his exposures? Josh Jacobs, Foster Moreau, Adams. I don't know if there's anybody else that was really.
I'm guessing none. Play. Like I looked at his top 10 to 15. I have to pull it back up here, and he didn't have any of them. So,
all right.
Yeah, it's interesting that he faded the Raiders in his 150, but didn't have any of the defense against them. If he did that,
yeah, he had zero Josh Jacobs, only 15% Olave, just of note. So he was heavy on that. He had 15% Devontae, 4% Moreau. So like you said, with no Josh Jacobs at all, and very little of the other two, it is definitely surprising, but that would be the next thing to look at. Like I said, it's annoying that you can't just find it that way.
So let me just while Tambo's looking at other things, let me just
1%
say the reason.
Saints D, 1% Saints D.
Okay. Well, what's interesting to me is, like JSU said, it's that these are not chalk lineups, and I think what makes this a really interesting lineup with not needing the run back piece is the teams that he went against have a lot more spread out in regards to their usage. So Detroit is a lot more spread out. They have a few players that are really solid, but nonetheless, they have two running backs. They have a tight end who's solid. They have a wide receiver, a handful of wide receivers who get the ball. Jared Goff likes throwing the ball a lot to other players, and the concentrated on the other side with Miami. And then it's the same thing with New England, is that like you could expect two of the running backs to just split all the carries like always and do the work, and you can do the run back of the trail script with, again, the Jets consideration. And I said it to JSU and Big T, but the Jets right now are a team that just lost Breece Hall, like Tambo said. They have Elijah Moore, who's a mess. They didn't have Corey Davis, and then even Denzel Mims, who was forced to play yesterday, wants a trade as well. So like you have guys that don't want to be on the team, causing you to be forced into a more concentrated offense on that side as well. And it worked out, and you can play the trail script in at least one of them. You can play the trail script on the in the Jets game, and I had no problem with it for that reason. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting how it shook out. I don't know if you guys, Simon, you want to throw up last night's showdown winner, unless you guys have anything else to say on this lineup, because I mean, I think we broke it down pretty good. Guys, don't forget, hit the like button. We got over 200 people watching now. Hit that thumbs up. It's a free show. We come here every Monday morning, talk a little football, review the slate. We'll talk a little showdown for tonight at the end. Hit that thumbs up. hit the red box, that subscribe button at the bottom right-hand corner. Get subscribed to the channel so you get notified every time we go live. We'll have another Showdown show later today with the boys breaking down the Showdown for tonight, Bengals and Browns. I know Big T, JT Hayes will be on it, and I'm sure there'll be some guests with them. So make sure you guys tune in for that later on today. Get subscribed. That's an easy way to tune in. So you know right when that show goes live, you'll get a notification. Boom, you'll be ready to go for the show. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But we got the Showdown winner up. Steph Diggs captain took it home last night. It was Josh Allen, Tyler Bass, and then 3 Packers. You had Aaron Jones, who had a big game on the ground, Romeo Doubs, and Tuare, I think is how you say his name. Young kid who caught the bomb at the end. KFALIK, let's go to you here. A lot of people were heavy Bills. I think 4-2 was the chalk build from the standpoint. Normally you see 3-3 as chalk, but I think on this slate it wasn't as popular just because I think a lot of people had Bills, scoring a bunch and Packers not doing as much. But the Bills, they stalled out a few times. You know what I mean? They stalled out a few times. Josh Allen made a few boneheaded mistakes at the end. I mean, the game was won. I think even Josh Allen, they felt the game was won, but he definitely made some mistakes definitely changed the Showdown winner at the end, right? I mean, talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So first of all, Vegas had this game tapped perfectly. 10.5 point spread, 47 over under, and it was 10 points and 44. So pretty close for Vegas. So props to Vegas on having that. And I think people tried to play it that way, most of all, including me, to be honest. Josh Allen had not gotten below 25 points at all this season, and I expected that to continue. And it was a weird game. And I was playing what everybody else. Again, I try to get unique on Showdown some, but it was really hard because you had cheap wide receivers for Green Bay, and you had expensive pieces for Buffalo that have been smashing. And I like Josh Allen and Diggs on all my lineups, and I liked two wide receiver run back for Green Bay. But it was the one that shocked me was how well Aaron Jones did, because AJ Dillon was getting a lot of work yesterday. The thing is that the split was going away, but AJ Dillon still got a lot of work yesterday.
KFALIK, I'll tell you why that was, though. Can I just interject real quick? The reason why Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon both got a shitload of work, and Aaron Jones still crushed, was because I would say up to the end of probably the start or the middle of the fourth quarter, all they were doing outside of maybe 3 or 4 plays in the entire game up to that point was run, scripted throws to the running back, run, scripted throws to the running back. It was so simple to know what Green Bay was. They were not letting those receivers try and win one-on-one on the outside. They did it literally 3 or 4 times. One of them bounced off one of the receivers, almost got picked. And then another one was a touchdown to Romeo Doubs. And there was one more. I can't remember. Oh, Christian Watson in the beginning of the game when he got hurt. Literally, I can remember the 3 plays up to the point where it was that was how many times it wasn't a scripted pass. Everything else was so scripted or just running the football. It kind of felt like they were just taking the air out of the football. They kind of knew it was the only way possible, just run. But they were running the clock out at the same time. So it didn't make sense. Even at the end of the game, they were still doing it. And I'm like, are they going to pick and hurry up this offense at all? No. You're just going to concede.
I thought the same thing. They played Aaron Rodgers like he was a third-year quarterback that was coming in against the best defense in the league, and it was a very shocking way of watching the game. I remember there was a 3rd and 5 from the 45-yard line of the Bills, and in the first quarter, and they ran the ball, and I just laughed, and then they punted the ball. It was just they have no trust in their offensive line. They have no trust in their wide receivers, so they're using their running backs, and they're using Aaron Rodgers for what they think he can do with this team right now. And it's just, it was a sad sight to see, to be honest, of how Green Bay just doesn't trust their team right now.
When you're down 17 going into the fourth quarter or whatever it was, even though running the football has worked for you, at that point, you can't just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Even though it's running, you're facing
exactly.
Josh Allen on the other side. Like, come on. Well, I get it. It worked, and they can't pass protect. I understand why they did it. But at some point, you got to just let Aaron Rodgers try and make a play, because you're not winning the game with the running anyways. That's not winning you the football
winning
game.
for you, and you have Aaron Rodgers. I don't give a shit what anybody says. That's not optimal. It's optimal to not lose the game by 21, but you have to take that risk and hope to lose by 21-30. Well, to play to try and get back in the game and win. Who gives a right? Everyone always says this, JSU. Everyone always says a win is a win. Vin Diesel.gif. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. It doesn't matter if you lose by 1 or 100. Play to fucking win the game. And if you lose, you lose. You were going to lose anyway. That was horrible. That was a horrible approach. Point. I don't care. They're down 17
that is
points.
The best point, Tambo. You just brought up. Play to win. They clearly played to just stay in the game, like keep it close. Like, we
played not to get embarrassed. Our guy on national television. Back now, he knows. He said, "Play to lose while not getting embarrassed." That's a horrible approach. Get embarrassed, lose. Doesn't matter. You're a loser still. You lost. That's what I'm saying. Like that's like us when we talk about DFS. To relate it back, we're on a DFS review show. It's a joke, the Ricky Bobby first or last, but we're playing these tournaments to try and win. Everyone's like, well, that was a stupid move. Yeah, it was stupid because it didn't work out. But the day when it ships and I got all the money and it worked out, what do you say then? Then I won with it. So I did approach the slate properly, but I'm okay getting embarrassed and losing and coming in dead last because I was playing to win. That's what
it's actually worse, Tambo. It's worse than I would rather finish dead last than be on the cash line and just miss. It tilts me.
And there is no min cash, JSU, in football. You take the win or the loss. That's a good point. There's no min cash. You don't get a min cash.
There is a tie, but who the fuck likes tying? Like nobody likes tying.
That's got to be the worst. But
it's the worst.
Do what you want to do. They can do whatever. It's their team. It's their game. As far as the lineup goes, my quick review on it is that I could not get away from Josh Allen last night. My thought on that, just so I go with it clearly, I know he was 35%. I hate playing captains that are that high owned, but he spreads it out so much that it's like even when it's a Diggs game, it's also somehow a Gabe Davis game, and Isaiah McKenzie somehow got there and all this. So if he was a guy that was a one guy all the time spot, then I understand it, but he just does so much. And I thought he left so much on the table too. Speaking of that, like he could have done a lot more yesterday in that game. It's just the way it shook out, but this lineup, like Tour or whatever his name was, I don't even think he would have played if Watson didn't get the concussion on he would have got his normal, what he got the week before, like 5 snaps or something. Like to me, 1 catch and it's a 37-yard touchdown. Of course that shakes up the slate, and that's why you do it. Finally, we had a slate where the folks that will play one-off guy like this in every lineup, just hoping that that's unique enough to get there. Got it. It was I think it was 51,500. For first on, which is good because it was only, I believe, I say only, but it wasn't a $500,000 or $1 million. I think it was only $300K up top last night, $11 buy-in. So nothing wrong with the lineup. It's fine. This is how you can build to ship unique. I love it. I'm good with that. I'm just saying it's hard to analyze and say, why did this happen or why did that? I think a lot of it had to do, because I actually do think Rodgers likes Watson. He's talked about him in interviews a little bit too. So I think that was literally the first guy he went to as a 12-yard play, I think it was a knee to the head, and he got a concussion. There's not much you can do about that beyond it. I mean, Rodgers is on the sidelines laughing as they're losing by 17. Like it's very clear. It's not the same as Brady when he's losing in these games and how competitive and psycho he is about it. Like Rodgers just kind of sort of looks good with it. And it's like, he wants to win obviously, but when they're down and out, it was just like that. I'll just hand the ball off and let my RBs do their thing. I'm good with it. Coach will run it that way and see what happens. And they were just never going to win that game, in my opinion.
Yeah. I will say one other thing, like in my opinion, the best cheap play, and I'm not even saying it because I was on him and I think he ran a little bad at the end, but the best non-obvious cheap play, meaning like someone that wasn't very popular, that was cheap, was James Cook. And I know Tuor or whatever his name was got there in the end. He caught the bomb and he was on the winner. But James Cook, I think he ran bad too, because I think if the game went as scripted, he would have got even more touches and even more looks. But man, this dude looks good. He came in at only 8% last night. Yeah. That was really nice. I was all over him. I had like 40-something% James Cook. I was so heavy on him. He almost scored think he had a few touches too, like rushes in the goal line situation. He almost scored on that pass play too. He just looks really good. That's another guy, like, he's going to be tough to get off the field at some point this year. Like, this team's going to be going far into the playoffs, so I don't think they're going to rush him. I think they like Singletary too a little bit, so it's not like they need him right now. But I think at some point, like, they're just going to struggle to keep this dude off the field. He looks friggin' good. And once he proves to them he can, like, in big moments, hold on to the football, which it tells me something when in the fourth quarter, and this game is still like semi-close, he got back in the game and got some meaningful touches. I mean, it wasn't a blowout. I think they felt like they were going to win the game, but this game wasn't a blowout, and he got some meaningful touches. So
he missed some chances too at the end. They said it, but it was true. He definitely could have got more looks if not for those picks. And then real quick, JSU, just because my guy Romeo asked, JBC also did win the FanDuel slate last night with a pretty unique lineup. It was good for 35K. So I think it was a three-way or a four-way chop at most, but he had Aaron Rodgers in the MVP Aaron Jones in the MVP with Aaron Rodgers, Tour, and Dobbs with Diggs on the other side. And he said, what did he ask me? He said, I get it, one outside of being on that run script, try not to get blown. Any thoughts? I mean, for me, pretty straightforward. Again, it's you got the running back to do the work. If you're not going to play quarterback in the MVP over on FanDuel, typically, and I think JSU, you're on the same page, at least this probably you too, Fad, but running back is a good way to go because it's a touchdown dependent site. If you're gonna play a flipped script, it's that they did the work with the running backs, they got there and scored, and now they need to come back the other way. And instead of using a quarterback, a way to keep it unique is just to go with Diggs on the other side, catching those passes. The rest of it, like Rodgers, Dobbs, made sense. Tour is the guy that makes it different, and you just have to hope he catches one, but he's your under 5% play that sets you off to be able to win with the unique if it gets there. So I thought the build, obviously it's good. It's coming from one of the best players in the industry, so I think it was fine. I'm just saying that's how I think he got to it, and you're just playing a flipped script. When we talk about tonight, JSU, I think that's going to be popular as well, like Cincy versus Cleveland, division battle, AFC North, no Jamar Chase. People are going to want to be on that side still. They're 3.5-point favorites on the road, but I could easily see this game going where the Browns win, like definitely. So we'll talk about that shortly, I'm sure. But anything else you guys want to talk about here with this one last night?
Yeah, no, I was going to say on FanDuel, think about it like this, like how does the quarterback, because the quarterbacks are always the most popular. So what are the routes where the quarterback fails? And it's tough because like when you play a wide receiver in that top spot, right? You still need the quarterback to throw it to him, but you probably need the quarterback to throw it to him more than once in the end zone, or him to have a big game and them to only score like 2 touchdowns offensively, where the quarterback doesn't smash, right?
Good
Other
point,
ways,
though.
them stalling for field goals, the defense is scoring, running backs on the ground scoring, right? Those are the ways where it negatively hurts the quarterback, and you're always on FanDuel specifically. You're always going against the quarterback in large field tournaments because they are always the most popular. So on FanDuel, if you're only building one lineup and you're trying to be different, try and find ways where the quarterback fails in the top spot specifically. That doesn't mean you can't play a quarterback in one of the other spots. You could do that too, but I'm saying try and find ways where the quarterback doesn't optimally hit the top spot. And those are the ways where I can think of all of those ways. That's how the quarterback wouldn't hit.
And you had a good point too on Aaron Jones with their injuries and stuff last night. Aaron Jones, we've talked about this all season. When they have a guy like AJ Dillon that can pound it in, Quadzilla when they get down to the goal line or whatever. But Aaron Jones has been used plenty as a receiver. I know he only got 4 catches for limited yards last night, but in a spot like this, I mean, it could open up. So when you see those lineups, people say, "Oh, running back in the MVP." Well, maybe he's treating him as a wide receiver / running back to say, I can double down on this. Yeah.
He almost had a touchdown in the middle of the game. They ran a screen pass at the 20-yard line. I don't know if you guys remember, Matt Milano made a great play and whoever it was, Estanza, like stood in the lane. He wasn't fooled by it, but that could have easily been a touchdown because they had a blocker out in front. If that dude wasn't in the way and he caught that ball, and Milano, missed the tackle somehow, that was a touchdown. Like he saved that play. So it's not like they weren't trying to get him the football out in space too. You know what I mean? Like for sure. All right. Anything else? Falik, did you have anything else? Nope. All right. Let's move to tonight. give a little quick synopsis, a little word I just pulled out of the dictionary for you people. I don't even know if it means what it means, but we'll go with it for tonight. And we got the Browns, the Bengals, no Jamar Chase. Obviously, everyone knows. Big news for the Bengals. How does this team look without Jamar Chase? We're going to find out shortly, but they have had success the last 2 weeks with Jamar Chase being very heavily involved, having big games. I mean, look at the last even 3 weeks, 12, 10, 11 targets. He was clearly game planned as someone they were trying to get the ball to early and often. He had 4 touchdowns the last 2 games. Now they're taking this production out. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it's just like one guy that's just going to like, oh, he's going to fill in for Jamar Chase. Like, yeah, maybe snap wise, maybe Mike Thomas just fills in. But production wise, this is tough production to just take over, right, Falik?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, not only let's talk injuries real quick first. Not only is Jamar Chase out, but also Stanley Morgan is out, who is the normal backup necessarily to Jamar Chase. So I think we need to keep an eye on who is the 5th wide receiver going to be. We know it's going to be Mike Thomas is going to be active, but I'm not completely sure they're going to just plug in Mike Thomas there. And the only other guy they have on their depth chart right now is Trent Taylor. So that leaves you with 4 wide receivers. So there's going to be a 5th wide receiver that I'd expect to be brought up, and it's going to be somebody out wide, I'd assume. I don't think that they're going to change their game plan. We haven't seen them ever change their game plan where they're going to play 2 tight ends. They don't like the 2 tight ends anymore without having their 2 that they usually have, with Sample being out. I don't think they're just going to magically go to 2 tight ends. On Cleveland's side, you have some very key injuries that need to be kept an eye on and considered. First of all, Njoku's out. So David Njoku's out, who's been their best receiver, in my opinion, this year. And then you have their starting guard is out.
I'm sorry. Did you just say Amari Cooper wasn't the best receiver on this team?
This year, Njoku has been the best receiver so far in my
tight end
opinion.
on their team. Yes, the best tight end on their team.
Yeah, stop it, Kevin.
Fine. So, anyways, you have the starting guard is out as well. Wyatt Teller's out. Their right guard is out, so that's going to impact their offensive line. In addition to Njoku being out, and then you have Denzel Ward, their star cornerback, is out with a handful of questionable tags, with Greedy Williams, who's Denzel Ward's backup. Their will linebacker is questionable. Greg Newsome is questionable, who is their right starting cornerback. And then finally, which is just stupid that we're discussing it, Pharaoh Brown is questionable as well, who they brought in to be the 3rd string tight end, who will be possibly the 2nd string tight end. So I think there's a handful of injuries that are going to possibly impact this game in some heavy ways. Obviously, the one being talked about is what has happened to Jamar Chase, but listen, there could be a lot more that could go down that can impact this game a lot. I can tell you, if Pharaoh Brown's out, I may just lock in Harrison Bryant at his price tag and just go that route and not even try to guess who the Bengals cheapie is going to be necessarily, and just play them plus some kickers. But I could see this game being a really low scoring game overall, but with Cleveland running the ball a ton. But the question is, what is Cincinnati going to do on the road on Halloween and in the dog pound and all that stuff? What are they going to do in a very important game?
Is DJ Reader still out?
DJ Reader is, sorry, my computer. Yeah, he's out. He's on the IR, I think.
Oh, I thought he was questionable. Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I think Browns could definitely show up here for sure.
So I'm looking at, so this is a 3.5 point spread. Bengals are favored in Cleveland, 45 point total. I personally think I'm getting 3.5 with the Browns at home. I feel like this is a trap in a way. Like, I feel like 3.5 is too good. Like, I don't know. I mean, the Browns can keep this game close, like what the hell? The Bengals just lost arguably their best offensive player outside of Joe Burrow. I mean, what are they going to do now? They're going to try and establish the run. They haven't been able to do that all friggin' year. That's the way you beat the Browns, though. I think you got to be able to run the football. They haven't been able to run the football all year. Cleveland, Cincinnati's been pretty good against the run, though. But Cleveland's one of those teams like they're always going to pound the football. I don't see how this isn't a close game. Also, I saw it in chat, but Amari Cooper, Falik, the best receiver for the Cleveland Browns. Have you seen his numbers at home?
He's busy looking up Njoku's numbers. He's looking up Njoku's numbers.
No, I'm not looking up
Cooper at
Njoku's
home
numbers.
has all 4 of his touchdowns. He's averaging 22 fantasy points as opposed to like 8 on the road. He's been a beast at home.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel pretty confident that Cleveland covers this here at 3.5. I think they win. They probably win the game, but that's just the way I feel. I think Jamar Chase is a massive loss to Cincy's just offense in general and to the explosiveness. They're going to need to run the football to win, I think, is the key. I think they need to do it. And I don't know if they can do it efficiently. I will say, though, like Joe Mixon and the captain, to me, makes sense because when you lose your best player, that just means that the guys like Joe Mixon and T. Higgins, they're going to have to just get more work in general. Tambo, how do you see this game going?
Do you want the good news or the great news, JSU?
I love great news. So
all right, well,
give it to me.
Amari Cooper is $400 less than Higgins on this slate. Higgins is the obvious plug-in because of the fact that Chase is out, like you were talking about. So at both captain at 1.5x, it changes slightly. But the point being, he's right there. Likely, I don't know, maybe at least half the ownership, if not maybe even closer to 1/3, it looks like from early projections. So I like that quite a bit. I think Higgins will be popular up top. I think when people get sneaky in their lineups, it will be to go off Higgins and go to Mixon. I understand in like smaller fields, you want to pack in the floor ceiling combinations, why they make sense. And I can get there on that topic. But in MME, where I'm playing to win 500,000 in seconds, 100, and it's 100 something thousand people, I don't know why you'd want that. I'll just play against it on purpose. Even if it is the best plays on paper, I'll try and avoid it there. So I think it's pretty clear cut for me on that stuff. I like the spot. Like you said, I think again, it's already a tough place to go in and play. I think Jamar Chase is a big loss, like you said. So I don't know, maybe it's a trap, but I think to me, it's like the worst case scenario feels like it's a close game and Bengals still win in the end, but all my lineups will still be okay having these Browns pieces in it, because if it's a lower scoring, you want the volume pieces in there and all the guys that are picking it up that way. So not sure if Falik has a different thought on it. Kevin, I'll come to you, but that's just how I'm thinking about it first thing in the morning. The chat talked about this too, actually. One quick thing about, I actually thought Hunt would get traded this morning. I thought it would already come out and we would have Dearness Johnson earlier than what we're waiting to see. But it is a good wait and see approach, because I couldn't find the tweet. I was looking for it. But the guys yesterday, besides DJ Moore, that were like the on the block or whatever, or people that are looking at them, none of them really had huge days or got featured or anything like that. It was more keep them ready in case someone wants to come for them at the deadline. So I'm not sure how that would affect with Hunt in this spot.
Tambo, the one thing I will say is, like, I think it's different too with running backs, because the pounding they take when they're going up the middle and stuff. If you are trying to trade a running back, unless you need to like showcase him, but Kareem Hunt's a guy you shouldn't.
You don't need to showcase him. Yeah, exactly.
The team knows Kareem Hunt. Like, they know what they're getting with a guy like Kareem Hunt. So it does make a little sense. So are you saying like maybe Dearness Johnson becomes a little bit of a sneakier play? Because we know how this works. Even with Kareem Hunt out, they're still going to have a second running back. That's just how they do it in Cleveland. Nick Chubb, he handles so much work in his snap percentage. I don't think it just grows exponentially with Hunt out. I do think that he may get more of the valued big opportunities at the goal line, but I also think that means he might get less, starting the drives off. You know what I mean? Where they work in Dearness Johnson to start drives, and then they bring in Chubb as they get to like the 40, 50-yard line, let him do his thing, and mix and match that way. So, Kevin, what do you think of that?
No, I think we just need to wait for the news on that. I'm not going to play I don't see myself playing Dearness Johnson unless we know something specifically about Kareem Hunt. But I would much rather play one of these wide receivers that are cheap for Cincinnati if I'm going down that low. Looking at the roster, you got, which is what I was doing, Tambo, instead of looking up Njoku stats, is Trenton Irwin and Kwame Lassiter are on the practice squad. You can ask Mr. Bruce Hines, You Kill Bill Walsh about Kwame Lassiter, a guy that he used to love at Kansas, rookie season, a guy that definitely could get it done on the outside instead of Mike Thomas. But everybody's saying, what about Trent Taylor? I don't see Trent Taylor getting any more run necessarily because he plays the Tyler Boyd role. It's not that he's playing the outside role, and Tyler Boyd isn't going outside, I don't think. I think you're going to see.
I think they'll move him outside, Falik. I think they will move him outside a little bit. They trust me, they want him inside, but I don't, unless you think Mike Thomas just plays all the downs, which I don't. I think they have to move Tyler Boyd because, like you said, I think Trent Taylor gets in the game a little bit. You don't think he plays one snap at wide receiver?
I think he plays some. I think all of them play some.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
I think
that you're going to see
Tyler Boyd gets split out a little more than you think.
I think you're going to see Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins playing and Hayden Hurst playing as many snaps as they can. Yeah. And then they're going to split it between the other three, whoever they may be, Trent Taylor, Mike Thomas, and then whoever the third one is that comes on. And if
you said that guy's name was Lucifer, Kwame Lassiter
is
Halloween narrative, a little Lucifer devil action. You never know, man. Dress up for Halloween, maybe. But I don't know. That was funny too to me. They put the two orange teams on Halloween to play against each other for Monday Night Football. Little things you think of that mean
they
nothing.
They definitely thought of that too.
They thought that. There's a marketing team out there.
They definitely thought of it. But another cheap receiver too, with all the tight ends down for Cleveland. Remember, they already had one tight end on IR. If Farrell Brown misses too, which I think he's highly questionable. He didn't practice until Saturday. He didn't practice Friday or Thursday. Like, if he was to be out too, I think another guy gets guys like David Bell, who are starting to see more work, and he's a talented rookie. Just another guy for Cleveland that you could add to the pool. Got 57% of the snaps last week. So that snap count's trending upward with him. And I think he's still pretty cheap. And I think he's a guy where he'll get some ownership. I'm not saying he's not going to get any ownership. He'll definitely get some. But compared to the ownership that the cheap Bengals guys will get, I think he will be much lower owned than guys like Mike Thomas and stuff like that. So if you're looking for ownership.
If the cheapies beat me, they beat me is what I'm going to say today. Like, I don't see how you can't play Harrison Bryant and a kicker before playing Tyler Boyd and a cheapie. Like, that's just going to be
Falik, you're talking also from like a 3-max, smaller slate.
Yep.
We're more talking to the people who are playing the $30 in the Millie Maker,
in the with $500K up top.
They got two lineups in there. Yeah,
To Falik's point, though, is people do try and figure this stuff out. Big T's been talking about it all season, even in the bigger stuff. He'll be on later on. I know it's going to be him, JT Hayes, and he just announced on Twitter. So you'll want to subscribe to the channel, click that like button, be ready for it. But it's going to be Cody Main from ETR, the Showdown Guru. So that's going to be a show you're not going to want to miss later on. They're going to go through it quite a bit more, but just to keep it up, like Falik said, and Big T's talked about, that's the thing. This is two quarterbacks now. Joe Burrow, much better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett, one of the top in the NFL, in my opinion. But at the same time, when you lose a guy like Chase and the defense can adjust a little bit better, and if some of those injuries shake out that these guys are in instead of out for some of the guys Falik mentioned, they can make it tougher on them. And you could see some stalling in these spots where you get these kickers involved on both sides of the ball a lot more. So, we love a good kicker over at RPS. It's treated us very well. And if the field doesn't want to play them, we'll continue to do it, because that goes to me, my final thoughts of the day, really. The main slate stuff about, just play the chalk. Yeah, but you have to know who to play with the chalk and how to play it and what to make it work to win the thing. You going looking for these diamonds in the rough ain't helping you right now in this landscape. It's the same thing in Showdown. If everyone's going to keep trying to find not saying he can't work, but the Lassiter, whatever you said his name was, that's the point. And he won't be popular if he even gets called up. But the point being, everyone looks for all these guys and, I've got the sneakiest lineup that if it does this, it wins. You need a lot of things to go right. Whereas Falik's point is better for smaller field, like 2,000 and less. but it can still work on the main slate too. These kickers put up 10 or 11. Good luck finding that from your $200 guy that you're hoping gets 5 catches for 60 yards or whatever to keep up. So might not even see that many targets, let alone get there on that range. So I love it. I like that call, Falik.
So one last thing, and then we'll kind of get out of here because we do have another show later, like you guys talked about, so people can tune in for that. But cheapies in the captain, I think it'll be a conversation on this slate just because there are cheapies that are expected to have bigger workloads. People kind of want to, kind of like the KFALIK strategy in a way where it's like jamming all these safe guys, right? And then have your cheap captain. And, you don't need him to do as much, especially if it's a lower scoring game and like he somehow gets the 20-yard touchdown and you have like 2 running backs with him and 2 quarterbacks and whoever else to finish out your last spot. What do you guys think of those builds? Because I think they're kind of like, for Millie Makers, I think they're bad builds personally. We've seen them get there a couple times. I think it was the $200 Alec Pierce was a cheap captain that kind of got
wasn't
there.
Even cheap though. He was 7,400 in the captain.
That's a good point. He wasn't even that cheap. But like, okay, so what do we think with those type of ones? Juwan Johnson got there for you, I think, one time, Tambo. But
just was going to say that, JSU. I love it for the smaller fields because that's where he was 3,300. He let me jam everything, so that works. But in the large field, not only do you end up on the same combo of dudes, like let's say you put Mike Thomas in the captain tonight, and you think he's going to be the guy that fills in. Sure. It could happen. He's probably got like a 1 or 2% chance to hit up top. But what do you think you jam in after that? You get Higgins, you get Burrow, you get Chubb, you get Mixon, you get some combination of the same thing. Doesn't mean it's bad because you can separate them to at most 3 and leave money. You can do it in different ways, but I don't think it's great for large field stuff. And I think you're always going to have a build where he can just swap down into the flex at his $1,200 price there, and you can get a lot more up top that's going to actually put up a ceiling. So I like it better for something like the smaller field stuff than I do for the main stuff. That's for sure.
Kevin, you have a take on that?
I just would not go below the kick, like around the 4K range. The kicker on the flex would be the captain spot as low as I would go personally. I'm
tonight is like over 6,000, right? Like you're saying, if you use a kicker in the captain, it's going to be.
Yeah. So like in this slate, and I've already talked about it a million times, so I'll just say it one more time, but like, Harrison Bryant's the lowest I'd go as a captain personally. I think like if you look at Njoku, who's been getting, like I'm looking at him right now at production so far this year, and it's not like it's an anomaly in regards to tight ends for Jacoby Brissett, but like 14, 9, 10.5, 23, and we'll skip the first 2 games, but like 7 targets, 10 targets, 5 targets, like if you could tell me that I'd be getting that from Harrison Bryant, it would be something I'd be interested in, as Tambo likes to say. So I think that's like the lowest I would go is a guy like Harrison Bryant, and it still gets you everything you want. It gets you the Cincy pieces you want. It gets you the Cleveland piece you want, pieces if you want pieces. Like it gets you whatever you want.
I want some Reese pieces, some Halloween candy tonight, man. Let's go.
I got plenty of those in my cabinet right here, waiting for the trick-or-treaters. We got
JSU doesn't like pizza. He doesn't like anything that most normal people like. But when it comes to the candies, he got that closet, that pantry full. So
I got.
What's your favorite Halloween candy?
I got the pantry, but I don't eat it. I don't really eat chocolate candy. I don't.
Too healthy, of course.
I'm not a fan of the chocolate candies for the most part. But my favorite candy, I guess, would be like. I like sour candies, so any like sour type candies I would be in for.
I like a Twix bar. Twix bar, baby. What about you, Falik?
The right or the left? I've never understood this right and left Twix
both.
bar
I don't
thing.
share that shit with nobody. Ain't a Kit Kat. I ain't breaking no pieces off.
Well, they're in the little kid size ones or whatever, but the mini size one. But anyways, we have a neighbor who has all the big stuff and like goes nuts on their candy, which is so awesome. I'm a Kit Kat guy personally. Crunch bars are also good. Anything that's got a little crispy wafer for me is what does it. Chocolate for sure though. Chocolate all day. Chocolate over anything fruity.
All right, there you go. Chocolate over anything fruity for Mr. Falik. Guys, stay tuned. We got Spread a Stare coming on for an NBA rundown show in a little bit on this channel. We've got the Showdown show later on today at 3 p.m. Eastern, I'm pretty sure, with Big T, JT Hayes, and Cody Main from ETR. So stay tuned, stay on this channel, click the subscribe button, get subscribed, click the thumbs up as we just did an hour 15 show for free. Hit that like button on your way out. We appreciate you guys. And good luck tonight in the Showdown contest and your NBA contest. I'll be back for the Up to Lock show for the NBA subscribers over here at Run Pure Sports. But until then, for me, JSU, Mr. KFALIK, and my favorite Canadian, Toe Tag, and Tambo, we'll see you guys later. Good luck.